Starting July 2028, you will not be able to walk into a store and buy a new PlayStation game on a physical disc. Sony confirmed this. Not rumored, not speculated, confirmed. The Washington Post reported it this week. And while most people skimmed past that headline between World Cup scores and heat wave warnings, what it actually represents is the final public acknowledgement of something that has been quietly happening for over a decade. You never really owned your games to begin with. The disc in your hand, the library in your account, the hundreds of dollars you spent building a collection, none of it was ever truly yours. This is the story of how the gaming industry engineered one of the most successful ownership transfers in consumer history, and did it so gradually that almost nobody noticed until it was already done. Here is why this matters right now, in a way that goes far beyond gamers. The games industry generates over $220 billion per year globally. It is larger than the film and music industries combined. When the second largest console platform on Earth announces it is ending physical media sales within 2 years, that is not a niche tech story. It is a signal about what every major media and software company intends to do with your relationship to the products you pay for. Think about what you actually own today. You have a Steam library with potentially hundreds of titles. You have games tied to your PlayStation Network account, your Xbox account, your Nintendo account. You have spent real money, in some cases thousands of dollars, building that library. And every single one of those games exists at the pleasure of a corporate server. Steam goes down, your library is inaccessible. Sony decides a game violates a new content policy, it disappears from your account. The company goes bankrupt, your purchases go with it. This is not hypothetical. In 2024, Sony shut down the PlayStation Store for PlayStation 3, PSP, and PS Vita. Hundreds of games became permanently unavailable for new purchase. Players who never backed up their downloads lost access entirely. Real money gone. Now multiply that across an industry that is actively, systematically eliminating every remaining alternative. To understand how we got here, you need to go back to 2004. That year, Valve launched Steam as a mandatory DRM platform for Half-Life 2. Players hated it. Forums were full of outrage. The concept of requiring an internet connection to play a single-player game felt like a betrayal of the basic consumer relationship. You buy a product, you own it. You use it whenever you want. That was the deal since Atari cartridges in 1977. Steam broke that deal, and Valve knew players would resist. So they made the platform irresistible instead. Deep discounts, centralized updates, achievements, a social layer, and eventually a marketplace. The friction of DRM got buried under genuine convenience. By 2010, Steam had 50 million accounts. By 2024, that number exceeded 130 million monthly active users. What had started as a product people actively protested became the default infrastructure of PC gaming. This is the template every platform followed afterward. Make the digital version easier, cheaper, more social, and more feature-rich than the physical one. Then, once the user base is locked in, begin removing the physical option entirely. This pattern has a name in economics. It is called a platform lock-in strategy. And it works the same way whether you are talking about games, music, or word processing software. The analogy that fits best is a toll road. At first, the toll road is faster and more convenient than the free road, so you start using it. Then, quietly, the free road gets worse. Less maintained, fewer exits. Then it closes altogether. By that point, you do not even remember choosing the toll road. You just drive it. The first revelation that most people have not absorbed is this. Sony's 2028 announcement is not the beginning of the end for physical games. It is the formal ceremony after the funeral. Consider the numbers. In 2009, physical game sales accounted for approximately 80% of the total games market. By 2023, physical represented less than 17% of total game revenue globally, according to data from Newzoo and the Entertainment Software Association. In the United States specifically, that figure had dropped below 12%. Physical was already a rounding error. Sony is not killing something healthy. It is removing a system that had already been quietly starved. But here is what makes this genuinely alarming rather than just commercially logical. The shift to digital did not just change the format. It fundamentally changed the legal relationship between you and the software you pay for. When you bought a cartridge or a disc, you owned a physical object. Under the first sale doctrine in American copyright law, you could resell it, lend it, give it away, or destroy it. That doctrine, established in a Supreme Court ruling in 1908 and reinforced repeatedly since, is one of the foundational protections of consumer property rights. Digital licenses bypass all of it. When you buy a digital game, you are not buying a game. You are purchasing a limited, non-transferable, revocable license to access software under conditions that the publisher can change at any time. That language is in every terms of service agreement, and almost no one reads it. The practical consequence is that a $100 game purchase in 2024 carries fewer legal protections than a $10 paperback you pick up at a garage sale. That shift happened without legislation, without public debate, and without most people understanding what they were agreeing to. The second revelation runs even deeper, and it overturns something most people take for granted about the current moment. You might assume that while physical is dying, at least your digital purchases are relatively stable. That the library you have built in Steam or on PlayStation Network is reasonably secure. That assumption is architecturally false, and the industry knows it. Here is the mechanism that makes your digital library fragile in ways your disc collection never was. Every major digital storefront operates on a licensing model that is fundamentally tied to corporate continuity. If Valve were acquired, restructured, or went bankrupt, there is no legal guarantee that your Steam library would transfer or remain accessible. Valve has never published a succession plan for its user libraries. Neither has Sony, in any binding legal form. The closest thing to a consumer protection policy in this space is a voluntary promise, not an enforceable contract. This is not a remote hypothetical. In 2019, Disney shut down its BAMTech game streaming platform. Users lost access. In 2022, Google shut down Stadia after 3 years. Users received refunds for hardware, but the experience of losing an entire platform overnight was a direct preview of what a larger failure would look like. Google Stadia had over 1 million users. Steam has 130 million. The scale difference is not reassuring, it is terrifying. And there are two numbers that should genuinely disturb you. The average gamer in the United States spends approximately $560 per year on gaming. Over a 15-year period, that is roughly $8,400 in purchases. According to a 2023 survey by the Entertainment Software Association, 68% of American gamers now primarily purchase digitally. That means the majority of those $8,000 is sitting in accounts with no first sale rights, no resale value, and no legal guarantee of long-term access. You are not building a library. You are renting one that looks like ownership. Now let us walk through exactly how this system sustains itself, because the mechanics are more sophisticated than most people realize. The platform model works through what economists call switching costs. Once you have a meaningful library on a platform, the cost of abandoning it is not just financial. It is psychological and social. Your save files, your trophies, your playtime history, your friends list, all of it is locked inside the platform. Moving to a competitor does not just mean repurchasing games. It means abandoning an identity you have built over years. Publishers exploit this lock-in by designing games as services rather than finished products. A game like Fortnite or Destiny 2 has no disc version that represents the complete product. The game you play today is different from the game that existed 2 years ago, and it will be different again in 6 months. Content gets added, removed, vaulted. Entire seasons of narrative content in Destiny 2 have been permanently deleted from the game, even for players who paid for them. Epic Games has done the same with limited-time Fortnite events that no longer exist anywhere. This is the counterintuitive part. The more a game is updated and supported, the more it resembles a service you are subscribed to rather than a product you own. And the industry has deliberately engineered that resemblance. The update cycle is not just about improving the game. It is about ensuring the game cannot exist independently of the platform and the company behind it. A self-contained disc from 2003 can still run on original hardware today. A live service game from 2023 cannot exist without active server maintenance that a corporation chooses to fund. The analogy that makes this click is the difference between owning a car and having a subscription to a car that gets updated over the air. If the company decides your model is no longer supported, it patches out your engine. You still have the shell. The complications here are real, and they extend beyond inconvenience into genuinely problematic territory. The first serious concern is preservation. Video games are a cultural artifact. They document creative history, technical innovation, and social trends in ways that are irreplaceable. The Internet Archive and organizations like the Video Game History Foundation have been fighting a legal battle to preserve games for over a decade. In 2023, the Video Game History Foundation published research showing that 87% of classic games are out of print and commercially unavailable. The shift to digital only accelerates this problem because publishers control access absolutely. Unlike a physical medium that can be copied and archived by libraries or private collectors, a license-based digital game can be made invisible with a server shutdown. The second complication involves price control. Physical media created market competition. Retailers like GameStop competed on used game pricing. Secondhand markets gave players options. Digital elimination of physical media eliminates all of that. Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo set their own prices on their own storefronts with no secondary market to discipline those prices. The result is visible already. AAA game prices increased from $60 to $70 to $80 as physical alternatives declined. With physical gone entirely, there is no structural force preventing further increases. There is also an emerging legal challenge worth watching. The European Union's Digital Markets Act, which came into full force in 2024, includes provisions that may eventually require platforms to allow game resale. The fight is not over, but the platforms are spending significant lobbying resources to ensure those provisions are defined as narrowly as possible. What does this mean for you specifically? If you are a gamer, the first thing to understand is that the window for building a genuinely owned physical library is closing, and closing fast. Sony's 2028 deadline is for new releases. Existing disc production will phase down before that. If you have games on aging consoles, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, original Wii, and those titles are not available on current platforms, you may already be in a situation where your access to those games depends entirely on functioning hardware you own today. If you are an investor or a business professional, the model being pioneered in gaming is the exact model that enterprise software, film streaming, and ebook platforms are moving toward. The question of what consumers actually own in a digital economy is going to become one of the defining legal and commercial questions of the next decade. Companies that figure out how to offer genuine ownership in digital formats, or that navigate the regulatory backlash against platforms that do not, are going to have a significant market advantage. The concrete thing to watch for is the outcome of the EU Digital Markets Act resale provisions, expected to be tested in courts by late 2026 or 2027. If the EU forces platform resale rights, every major platform will restructure their licensing model globally. If they successfully lobby it away, the current trajectory accelerates without legal friction. Xbox's recent move to digitize physical collections, the disc-to-digital feature reported this week by The Verge, sounds like a consumer benefit. And it is, in the short term. But it is also the last step in migrating physical collections into a license-based digital ecosystem. Once your discs are digital, the disc is unnecessary. The physical alternative disappears. And the license, not the game, becomes the only thing you hold. Zoom out for a moment. What you are watching happen in gaming is the first completed example of a much larger transformation in how human beings relate to the things they pay for.